The year is 119 BCE. A merchant stands in the central square of Chang'an, the capital of the Han Empire. His crime? Selling salt. Not stealing it, not smuggling it, simply selling it. Because in Emperor Wu's China, salt doesn't belong to merchants anymore. It belongs to the state. The merchant's warehouses were seized. His inventory was confiscated. His family fortune was erased. This wasn't about one man's crime. This was a message to an entire economic class. Because Emperor Wu of Han had just done something no ruler in history had attempted at this scale. He didn't just tax the economy. He didn't just regulate it. He replaced it. Every grain of salt, every iron blade, every cup of wine, every coin in circulation. They all flowed through government hands now. He turned the world's largest empire into the world's first state-run corporation. Private business didn't just shrink under Emperor Wu. It was systematically dismantled, absorbed, and nationalized. This is the story of how one man seized control of an entire economy, and in the process, created a blueprint that governments still use today. His name was Emperor Wu of Han, and this is how he built the monopoly empire. Let's rewind to 141 BCE. Emperor Wu ascends to the throne at 16 years old. He inherits the richest empire on earth. 60 million people, endless agricultural land, the Silk Road bringing treasures from the West. On paper, the Han Empire is an economic superpower. But the emperor doesn't actually control the wealth. The early Han dynasty operated on a principle called Huang Lao, radical economic freedom. After centuries of war, the first Han emperors decided, let the markets breathe. Low taxes, minimal interference, let merchants trade, let farmers farm. And it worked. For 70 years, China prospered. But prosperity created a new problem. The wrong people got rich. Merchant families accumulated massive fortunes, larger than some kingdoms. They controlled salt mines in Sichuan, iron foundries in Henan. They owned the trade routes. Meanwhile, the imperial treasury was running dry. The state kept taxes intentionally low, around 3% of agricultural output. But wars aren't cheap. And Emperor Wu had inherited enemies. To the north, the Xiongnu, a nomadic confederation that made Genghis Khan's later Mongols look tame. For decades, they'd raided Han borders, kidnapping citizens, stealing livestock, humiliating the empire. Previous emperors had tried appeasement, sending gold, silk, even princesses as brides. It didn't work. The Xiongnu took the gifts and raided anyway. Emperor Wu made a decision that would change everything. No more appeasement, total war. But total war requires total funding. A military campaign against the Xiongnu required 100,000 plus cavalry soldiers, tens of thousands of horses replaced constantly, supply lines stretching thousands of miles, weapons, armor, food, payment for soldiers. One campaign could cost more than the empire's entire annual tax revenue. And Wu didn't want one campaign. He wanted decades of campaigns. He wanted to push the Xiongnu back past the Gobi Desert, secure the Silk Road, expand the empire's borders to territories never before controlled by Chinese kingdoms. So here's the question that launched everything. How do you fund an infinite war with finite tax revenue? Traditional answer, raise taxes. Emperor Wu's answer, eliminate the competition. Wu looked at the Han economy and saw something everyone else missed. The wealthiest industries in China, salt, iron, alcohol, weren't just businesses. They were essential monopolies being run by private citizens. Everyone needed salt, not wanted, needed. Salt preserved food in a world without refrigeration. It was used in medicine, in rituals, in cooking. You couldn't survive without it. And a few merchant families controlled the entire supply chain. They owned the mines, they owned the refineries, they owned the distribution networks. They set the prices, and those prices were high. Iron, same story. Every farmer needed iron tools. Every soldier needed iron weapons. But iron production was controlled by a handful of industrial families who perfected smelting techniques. Alcohol, massive revenue generator, controlled entirely by private brewers. Currency itself, private mints were producing coins, sometimes debasing them for profit. Emperor Wu realized, these aren't just businesses. These are government functions being outsourced to private profit. If the state controlled these industries, the revenue wouldn't go to merchant families. It would go to the treasury. Every purchase of salt equals government revenue. Every iron tool forged equals government revenue. Every coin minted equals government revenue. It wouldn't be taxation. It would be ownership. But to make this work, Wu needed an architect. Enter Zhang Hengyang. Financial genius, former merchant himself, a man who understood both business and bureaucracy. Emperor Wu made him imperial secretary, essentially the empire's CFO. And together, they began designing the greatest economic takeover in ancient history. The year is 119 BCE. Emperor Wu and Zhang Hengyang are ready to move. But they face a problem. You can't just announce you're seizing an entire industry. The merchant class has connections, they have wealth, they have influence in the imperial court. A direct confrontation could trigger rebellion. So Wu and Zhang use a different strategy. Economic warfare disguised as reform. Phase 1, the salt monopoly. It starts with salt. The official justification, national security. The empire needs revenue for defense against the Qingnu. Salt is essential. Therefore, salt production must serve the empire. Here's what actually happened. All salt producers must now register with the government and obtain official licenses. The government sets fair prices for salt, lower than market rates. Merchants protest. They can't make profit at these prices. The government's response: we're protecting the people from price gouging. New regulations, government inspectors, purity requirements. Many smaller operations can't meet the standards. They're forced to sell to larger producers or to the state. The state offers to buy out the major salt producers. The price, non-negotiable. Those who refuse have their licenses revoked. It all happens legally. No violent seizures, no dramatic confrontations. Just bureaucracy, regulation, and state power. Within 5 years, private salt production in China effectively ends. The government now controls every salt mine, every refinery, every distribution point. They set the prices, they control supply. And the revenue flows directly to the imperial treasury. Phase 2, the iron monopoly. Emboldened by success, Emperor Wu moves to the next target, iron. This is more complex than salt. Iron production requires technical expertise, sophisticated foundries, skilled metalworkers. But Wu has learned something crucial. You don't need to understand an industry to control it. You just need to control the inputs and the outputs. The state takes over iron mines first, then smelting operations, then tool production. Private blacksmiths can still exist, but only if they buy government-produced iron. At government prices. Every plow, every sword, every nail. The state takes a cut. The government doesn't just produce iron for profit. They use it as a control mechanism. Need iron for your farm? You buy from the state. Need weapons for self-defense? You buy from the state. Want to start a rebellion? Good luck arming your soldiers when the state controls all weapon production. This isn't just economic policy. This is social control through industrial monopoly. Phase 3. The alcohol monopoly. By 98 BCE, Emperor Wu is ready for the next phase, alcohol. Alcohol is a luxury good with mass demand. People don't need it to survive, but they want it, and they'll pay premium prices for it. The state nationalizes breweries. Private production becomes illegal. Government-run taverns appear in every major city. The quality, mediocre. The price, high. But there's no alternative. You want a drink, you buy from the state. The revenue is staggering. And there's a bonus, black markets. People brew illegally. And when they're caught, heavy fines, confiscation of property, sometimes execution. Those fines, more revenue. Confiscated property, absorbed by the state. Emperor Wu has created a system where even breaking the law generates government income. Phase 4. Currency control. The masterpiece comes in 113 BCE, complete currency control. Before Emperor Wu, China had multiple types of money. Private mints producing bronze coins, regional currencies, commodity money. This creates chaos. Exchange rates fluctuate, debasement is common. Emperor Wu's solution. The state becomes the only legal mint. Private coin production becomes treason, punishable by death. New standardized currency, the Wuzhu coin. Fixed weight, fixed composition, imperial stamp. Now the state controls what money is, how much exists, what it's worth. The government can now inflate currency to fund wars, deflate to increase coin value, control money supply to manipulate markets. Emperor Wu controls what you eat, what you build with, what you drink, what you buy things with. Every basic transaction in the empire now involves the state. This isn't taxation. This is total economic integration. The merchant class didn't disappear overnight, but their power was broken. The great merchant families either accepted positions in the state bureaucracy, fled to the peripheries of the empire, or quietly faded into irrelevance. Because in Emperor Wu's China, there was no such thing as private wealth that didn't serve the state. You could be rich, but only if the emperor allowed it. By 110 BCE, Emperor Wu's monopoly system is fully operational. And the results are staggering. Government revenue has more than doubled. But more importantly, the type of revenue has changed. Before the monopolies, 90% of state income came from agricultural taxes, 10% from trade tariffs and miscellaneous fees. After the monopolies, 60% from state-run industries, 40% from agriculture. This is a complete restructuring of how government funding works. The emperor is no longer dependent on taxing farmers. He's running businesses. And those businesses are massive. The Salt Administration employs over 100,000 workers, miners extracting salt from deposits, refiners processing it, transporters moving it across the empire, retailers selling it in government shops. It's a vertical integration that would make modern corporations jealous. The Iron Bureau operates hundreds of foundries. They're producing weapons at industrial scale, 100,000 crossbows per year, hundreds of thousands of swords, spears, armor sets, agricultural tools for state-managed farms. This is weapons manufacturing as a government department. The alcohol monopoly generates revenue equivalent to 20% of agricultural taxes. Millions of citizens buying government-produced wine. Every drink financing the empire's expansion. And expansion is exactly what Emperor Wu does with this wealth. 121 BCE, General Hu Oquabang crushes the Xiongnu in the Gobi Desert. 119 BCE. Massive two-pronged invasion pushes nomads back 1,000 miles. 112 BCE. Conquest of Nanu, modern Vietnam. 108 BCE. Annexation of Gajosian, northern Korea. The Han Empire nearly doubles in size during Wu's reign. The Silk Road, previously controlled by hostile nomads, becomes a Han highway. Trade with Rome begins. Chinese silk appears in Mediterranean markets. The empire is not just surviving, it's dominating. But here's what most people miss about Emperor Wu's system. It's not just about revenue. It's about information. When the state controls industries, it knows everything: who's buying salt, where, how much, which regions need more iron, where is alcohol consumption highest, what's the velocity of currency circulation. This is data collection on an unprecedented scale. The government can track economic activity in every province, resource distribution, population movements, potential unrest. Emperor Wu created what we might call today a surveillance economy. Every transaction is a data point. Every purchase is monitored, not through choice, but through necessity. To run this system, Emperor Wu built a professional bureaucracy. The Imperial Secretariat, thousands of officials managing state industries. These aren't aristocrats or generals. They're accountants, managers, logistics experts. Sang Hengyang creates a training system. Officials learn inventory management, price optimization, supply chain coordination, regional economic analysis. It's a civil service built for economic management. Wu ties their success to the system's success. Officials get bonuses based on revenue increases in their sector, efficiency improvements, successful expansion of state operations. They're incentivized to make the monopolies work. And they do. Government salt refineries become more efficient than private ones were. Iron production increases. Quality actually improves in some sectors. Because the state has resources private merchants never had. Access to the best craftsmen through compulsory service, unlimited labor through convict work programs, capital for infrastructure funded by monopoly revenue. By 105 BCE, the Han state has become something unique in history. Not just a government, but a corporation. A vertically integrated, monopolistic, state-owned enterprise operating at continental scale. The largest employer in the world. The largest manufacturer. The largest distributor. All under one authority, Emperor Wu. But there's a problem forming. One that Emperor Wu can't see yet. One that will ultimately unravel everything. Because monopolies don't just control markets. They kill them. And a dead market is a dangerous thing. The year is 95 BCE. Emperor Wu is in his 60s now. The monopoly system has been running for over 2 decades. On paper, everything looks successful. Revenue is high, the army is strong, the borders are secure. But something is rotting beneath the surface. When the state controls an industry, competition disappears. And with competition goes innovation. Take iron production. Private foundries used to compete on quality. Better smelting techniques meant better tools, which meant more sales. Metalworkers experimented, innovated, improved. But state-run foundries have quotas. Meet the quota, you're successful. Exceed the quota, you don't get extra reward. You just get a higher quota next year. Why innovate? An official in the Iron Bureau writes a report in 94 BCE. The quality of agricultural tools has declined. Farmers complain plowshares break more frequently than before nationalization. The reason? State foundries use cheaper materials to maximize profit margins. They can afford to because there's no alternative. Farmers have to buy government iron, even if it's inferior. This happens across all monopolized industries. Salt purity declines, alcohol quality drops, even coins start showing inconsistencies in weight and composition. The state prioritizes quantity over quality. Because monopolies don't need to compete on quality, they just need to exist. But the bigger problem is corruption, and it's systematic. A regional salt administrator controls distribution for an entire province. He's supposed to sell salt at fixed government prices. But what if he creates an artificial shortage? He holds back supply. Prices spike on the black market. He sells his withheld inventory privately. Pockets the difference. Multiply this by hundreds of officials across dozens of provinces. By the 90s BCE, corruption in the monopoly system is endemic. Officials embezzle funds, inventory disappears, goods are sold illegally, quality standards are ignored for bribes. Wu responds with purges, executions, public trials. In 91 BCE, dozens of officials are put to death for corruption. But it doesn't stop, because the system incentivizes corruption. When officials control the only legal supply of essential goods, they have ultimate leverage. They can extort citizens who desperately need salt or iron, accept bribes from wealthy families for preferential access, create black markets and profit from both sides. The merchant class, the one Emperor Wu destroyed, used to police itself. Competitive markets punish bad actors. Sell inferior goods, customers go to your competitor. Overcharge, someone undercuts your price. But in a monopoly, there is no competitor. The state is the only option. So corruption doesn't get punished by market forces. It gets punished by more bureaucracy. Inspectors to watch the officials. Then inspectors to watch the inspectors. The administrative costs explode. By 90 BCE, illegal trade in China is massive. Smugglers create underground salt distribution networks. Illegal foundries operate in remote mountains. Unlicensed brewers make alcohol in hidden cellars. Counterfeiters produce fake Wazhu coins. Emperor Wu responds with escalating violence. Smuggling salt becomes a death penalty offense. Operating an illegal foundry means execution of entire family. Counterfeiting currency means public torture before execution. In 87 BCE alone, over 100,000 people are executed for economic crimes. Not for rebellion, not for treason, for participating in markets. Because black markets are real markets trying to exist in a monopoly's shadow. And Emperor Wu has to kill them to maintain control. But the more you suppress something people need, the more valuable it becomes. Black market salt sells for 5-10 times the official price. And people pay it. Because government salt is lower quality, inconsistently available due to corruption, sometimes completely unavailable due to distribution failures. The black market isn't criminal innovation. It's economic necessity. By 90 BCE, government revenue reports still look good. The monopolies are generating massive income. Military campaigns continue. Infrastructure projects proceed. But accounting starts to get creative. Officials begin inflating production numbers, underreporting costs, hiding losses from failed operations, counting projected revenue as actual revenue. Because under Emperor Wu, failure is not an option. Administrators who report declining revenue are demoted, exiled, sometimes executed. So they don't report problems. They hide them. The system starts running on fiscal fiction. The numbers say everything is working. The reality is deterioration. But Emperor Wu, aging and increasingly paranoid, doesn't see it. Or doesn't want to see it. because admitting the monopolies are failing would mean admitting his entire economic philosophy was flawed. And emperors don't admit they're wrong. By 87 BCE, Emperor Wu is dying. He's ruled for 54 years, the longest reign in Han history up to that point. He's expanded the empire to its greatest extent, crushed the Xiongnu, built palaces and infrastructure, and created an economic system that controls every aspect of Chinese life. But he hasn't prepared for what happens when a weaker emperor inherits this system. Because the monopoly machine requires constant enforcement, brutal suppression of black markets, administrative excellence, unwavering political will. What happens when the next emperor doesn't have Wu's strength? We're about to find out. Emperor Wu dies in 87 BCE. His successor, Emperor Zhao, is 8 years old. A regency council rules in his name. And immediately, the monopoly system begins to crack. The year is 81 BCE. The empire convenes the famous debates on salt and iron. Reformers versus monopoly defenders. The reformers argue, the state monopolies have crushed merchant innovation, created corruption, reduced quality of goods, turned citizens into criminals, enriched officials while impoverishing the people. The defenders respond, the monopolies have funded our military, secured our borders, built infrastructure, prevented merchant exploitation, made the empire strong. Both sides are right. That's the tragedy. The monopolies did generate massive revenue. They did fund expansion. They did prevent some forms of merchant exploitation. But they also created systematic corruption, economic stagnation, black markets, administrative bloat, social resentment. The question isn't whether monopolies work. The question is, what's the real cost? The Regency Council makes a decision, partial reforms. Some monopolies are relaxed. Private alcohol production is re-legalized in 81 BCE. The results are immediate. Quality improves, prices drop, black markets in alcohol collapse. Tax revenue from alcohol actually increases because legal markets are easier to tax than black markets. This creates a problem for monopoly defenders. If demonopolizing works for alcohol, why not for salt? Why not for iron? But the state can't fully abandon the system, because by now, the government is dependent on monopoly revenue. The military budget is built on it. The bureaucracy is funded by it. So they're trapped. The monopolies are failing, but they can't be abandoned. It's an economic death spiral. By 44 BCE, the iron monopoly is barely functioning. State foundries are producing at 40% of capacity, operating with massive corruption, generating more administrative costs than revenue. The government makes a desperate decision, privatize iron production, but maintain heavy taxation and licensing. It's a hybrid system, neither fully state-run nor fully free market, and it satisfies no one. Private foundries struggle under heavy regulation. State oversight continues to stifle innovation. Quality remains poor. The worst of both worlds. The currency monopoly lasts longer. But by the 1st century CE, even that's deteriorating. Mints in distant provinces start reducing metal content in coins, producing underweight currency, creating regional variations. The Wuzhu system fragments. Currency instability returns. By the time the Han dynasty falls in 220 CE, almost nothing remains of Emperor Wu's monopoly system. Salt production partially privatized. Iron fully privatized. Alcohol private. Currency fragmented and chaotic. The great experiment is over, but the legacy remains. So what do we learn from Emperor Wu? Is this a story about the dangers of state control? or about the necessity of government intervention? The answer is both. And that's why this history matters today. Because Emperor Wu's playbook didn't disappear. It evolved. Look at state monopolies in the modern world. Saudi Aramco, state-owned oil monopoly, controls 95% of Saudi oil production, generates 70% of government revenue, one of the most valuable companies on earth. China National Petroleum Corporation, state-owned, monopoly on domestic oil and gas, vertical integration from extraction to retail. Russia's Gazprom, state-controlled natural gas monopoly, used as a geopolitical weapon, revenue funds the Russian state. Or look at telecommunications. China has state-owned telecom monopolies. Russia has state-controlled telecoms. Many Gulf states have government-owned telecom companies. These aren't just businesses. They're control mechanisms. Just like Emperor Wu's salt and iron. Sometimes state monopolies actually work. Norway's Equinor, state-owned oil company, highly efficient, funds one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, generally well-managed and innovative. Singapore's state-owned enterprises, telecommunications, Singtel, port operations, PSA International, airlines, Singapore Airlines, often profitable and competitive. So what's the difference? Why do some state monopolies fail like Han Iron Foundry while others succeed? 3 factors. 1. Accountability. Norwegian and Singaporean state companies have transparent accounting, independent oversight, professional management separated from politics, performance metrics. Han monopolies had none of this. Officials reported to the emperor. Failure meant execution, so they lied. 2. Competition exposure. Many modern state companies compete internationally. Singapore Airlines competes with private carriers. Equinor competes in global markets. Competition forces innovation. Han monopolies had captive domestic markets. No competition meant no pressure to improve. 3. Rule of law. Modern successful state enterprises operate under consistent regulations, legal frameworks, anti-corruption systems. Han monopolies operated under imperial whim, arbitrary enforcement, systemic corruption with death penalty deterrence that didn't work. The core economic lesson from Emperor Wu. Monopolies, public or private, face the same core problem. No competition equals no innovation pressure. This is true whether the monopolist is a government, a corporation, or an emperor. The question is never, should there be monopolies? The question is, what mechanisms prevent monopoly from creating stagnation and abuse? Emperor Wu had mechanisms: bureaucratic oversight, harsh punishments, regular purges of corrupt officials. They didn't work. Because when the monopolist controls enforcement of monopoly rules, who watches the watchers? Today's governments face Emperor Wu's exact dilemma. Essential industries, energy, water, healthcare, telecommunications, are natural monopolies or near monopolies. Option 1. Let private companies run them. Risk, profit motive overrides public good. Example, U.S. healthcare costs. Option 2. Government runs them. Risk, inefficiency, corruption, stagnation. Example, Soviet industrial collapse. Option 3. Hybrid models. Risk, worst of both worlds. Example, U.S. defense contractors, monopoly profits, government inefficiency. There is no perfect answer. Emperor Wu proved that. His monopolies generated wealth and created problems. They funded expansion and caused stagnation. They prevented merchant exploitation and created state exploitation. The lesson isn't monopolies are bad. The lesson is monopolies are powerful and dangerous. They can be tools, but they can also become traps. Once you build a monopoly system, you become dependent on it. The Han government needed monopoly revenue. So even when monopolies failed, they couldn't fully abandon them. We see this today. Countries dependent on oil monopolies can't diversify their economies. Cities dependent on municipal monopolies can't reform them. Systems become self-reinforcing, and breaking them becomes almost impossible. Emperor Wu died believing he'd secured the empire forever. He'd crushed external enemies, built massive infrastructure, created an economic system that funneled wealth to the state. But within a century, it was falling apart, because systems built on control are inherently fragile. They require constant enforcement. They accumulate hidden costs, and eventually, they collapse under their own weight. Modern monopolies, state or private, face the same gravitational pull: short-term power, long-term fragility. Emperor Wu built an empire, but he also built its failure mode. The question for us today is, are we repeating his mistakes or learning from them? Emperor Wu of Han ruled for 54 years. He expanded China's borders further than any previous emperor. He crushed the Xiongnu. He established the Silk Road. He built monuments that lasted centuries. And he created an economic system that governments still study and copy today. But his greatest achievement wasn't military conquest. It was this: he proved that a government could replace an economy. Not just tax it, not just regulate it, but become it. Every transaction, a government transaction. Every purchase, a state revenue stream. Every citizen, an economic subject. And he proved something else, that such a system could work. For decades, generating wealth, funding expansion, securing power, until it didn't. The salt monopoly, the iron foundries, the alcohol bureau, the imperial mint. They didn't fail because the idea was wrong. They failed because monopolies, all monopolies, carry within them the seeds of their own destruction. No competition means no innovation. No market pressure means no efficiency. No alternatives means no accountability. Emperor Wu's legacy isn't success or failure. It's a warning that echoes across 2,000 years. You can control an economy. You can monopolize industries. You can replace markets with state power. You can do all of this, and it will work, until it doesn't. His name was Emperor Wu of Han. He turned an empire into a corporation. And in doing so, he created a blueprint that the world has never forgotten. This has been the Ancient Billionaires. Emperor Wu of Han, the state monopoly master.